Handheld gaming might be my favorite way to play video games. Ever since the original Game Boy released, and actually that's not true, that's a lie. I'm lying to you right now. I'm sorry about that. Ever since I played my first Tiger Electronics handheld back in the 80s, I thought that was the way to go. I thought handheld video gaming was the way to be. And then when I got a Game Boy and realized that, oh my God, I don't just have to have these crappy little LCD games, I can play something really impressive, that set it apart, and that made me a lifetime fan. Today, we're looking at what I feel are the best retro handhelds, with one major caveat, because I can't find my PSP. And I can't tell you should play a PSP if I can't find it. I've looked high and low, I don't know where it is. So just consider the fact that the PSP should be on this list because it's wonderful, and I would love to show it off, but I don't know where it is. So we're gonna kick things off instead with what is a retro handheld, but it is a modern retro handheld. And it's one that Nintendo released a couple of years ago. That's right, a couple of years ago, Nintendo released both a Super Mario Bros. And a Zelda version of their classic Game & Watch. Now, I love this thing. I think it is a phenomenal idea, and it was a really clever way for Nintendo to kind of make use of a classic trademark. Like, don't make any mistake about it. This was all for trademark renewal here. This was no reason other than that. But the idea of what they did, I thought was fantastic, because it's a good hand feel, which is really nice, and you get some really classic games on it. Like the Zelda one, I believe, has The Legend of Zelda and Link's Awakening on it, which, I mean, that's a steal right there. That's a fantastic couple of games. And it just does everything a normal Game & Watch does as well. But it doesn't make you play the crappy LCD games like we were talking about with a Tiger handheld. I really do think that this was something that Nintendo, like I said, looked at it and went, oh, the Game & Watch trademark's coming up. We should probably renew it. What can we do? Should we put out another collection? No, let's make a little piece of hardware. Let's make a little piece of kit here for people to buy. And I remember these being really popular when they dropped. I see them everywhere now, so maybe they're not as popular as I remember. But to me, this is a great little piece of equipment, and it's a really awesome way for Nintendo to kind of acknowledge their history while still stepping bravely into the future. All right, this next one here is from Sega. Now, you guys know me, I'm a huge Sega fan, and Sega put out two fantastic handhelds, and one of them is essentially just a portable Genesis, and it's this guy here, the Sega Nomad. I am a big fan of this device. Not a big fan of the battery life because it drinks batteries, but I do love the concept of just being able to grab my favorite Genesis game, sit down on the couch, and play it on this. Whereas other systems use proprietary discs or proprietary cartridges, this one just said, no, we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna use the classic Genesis setup. And it's something that this was a gift to me from Gary from Rock Solid, and it was something that I loved when he gave it to me, and I still love it today. Like, it's still something I use. And it was wildly ahead of its time. Like, this was kind of a switch, right? Like, it had an S-Video out, it had a controller port, so you could just plug it into your TV and use it as a Genesis, which I thought was pretty amazing. And of course, it had the tiny little screen there, so you could play it on the go as well. And to me, this is kind of where Sega's at their best, is when they're thinking outside the box and trying something a little bit different and not just trying to copy the coattails or run on the coattails of what something like Nintendo had done beforehand, which never really worked out for them. When we got to something like the Dreamcast, when the Dreamcast released, there was already disc-based systems, but it tried something brand new. It put in the modem. It gave us an easier system to actually have games developed for. And I thought that when the Nomad released, it was kind of that same thing where they went, why do we want to reinvent the wheel here? Let's just utilize the Genesis hardware that's already out and just make it portable. Yes, I know a lot of you know this one's coming. This is the Neo Geo Pocket Color. This is one of my favorite handheld devices of all time. First off, I'm a huge SNK mark. I love their games. I love when they do things that are ambitious and are different enough that they stand out. And that was the thing that I loved about the Neo Geo Pocket Color, was just another handheld device with a color screen. We had the Game Boy Color at the time. We were a couple of years away, if not a year away, from the Game Boy Advance. This was something that really tried something different, because not only did you get amazing SNK games, which is always a win for me, the thing that they really did that I thought was fantastic was the joystick. It had the clicky sticks in there, which is something that was a signature experience on the Neo Geo arcades and the Neo Geo home systems. And this system was so much fun to play. There weren't a ton of games here released in the States. I think there was 36 total, and a lot of them were like really crappy pachinko machine games, but the ones that were excellent, the ones that were really fun and creative and tried something different and were aggressive with what the system could do, were memorable and excellent. Games like Dark Orange Beastbuster 99, games like Capcom vs. SNK Card Fighters Clash, There's so many amazing games on here. The first Sonic game on here that was developed by the guys that ended up doing Sonic Advance was on the Neo Geo Pocket Color. And it's marvelous. It's a really wonderful game. And then you get classic arcade ports like Pac-Man. The Pac-Man port on here is fantastic. It's legitimately one of my all-time favorite systems. It is something that I treasure. It's the only system I'm going for a full collection for. And I love it. It's just a wonderful, wonderful device, and just amazing stuff here from SNK. Now, while I don't know where my PSP is, I do know where my Vita is. And this is something that I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with. So I love the concept of the Vita. I think it is an absolutely fantastic device. And I think that every time I get one, because this is my second one now, I kind of forget what makes it great, because I get it and then I'm like, oh, all right, yeah, it's just another PlayStation console. But when you stop and really look at it, there's so much happening under the hood of this device that is just remarkable. First off, the screen is the best screen ever in a handheld device. Yes, even better than the Switch. The OLED screen on the Vita is amazing. The touch screen on the back adds a really subtle element of gameplay that wasn't really taken advantage of in a lot of ways, but games that I do like Uncharted Golden Abyss, uses it very well. The control sticks are fantastic. The onboard memory sucks, and the fact that you have to use a proprietary device to actually get memory cards for it also sucks, but it's still fun. And the library was great. There was a bunch of unbelievable games on here that were Vita exclusives that we have seen kind of eventually trickle out to other devices, but the Vita itself, that was the place to play it. It's a really awesome system, and it's kind of fun to hack too. Like you can really turn this into an unbelievable retro emulator here. It's a marvelous device. It's really fun. I think Sony's best portable handheld, like, yeah, even better than the PSP, and I know a lot of people love that. Certainly better than the Portal. It's a system that to me was abandoned too quick by Sony, and I think a lot of people would agree with me on that, even though it hung around longer than I also expected, because Sony has a tradition of just saying, we don't care anymore. We don't give a crap. But I really like this one. And yeah, this is one I picked up well after the fact. It was already hacked. It was also beat to shit, so I actually have a case on it, and I have thumbstick covers on it because the thumbsticks are missing, but for under $100, you can't beat it. All right, back to Sega now, and I love the Sega Game Gear. This was a system that I wanted when I was younger, and I was never able to get. I was basically told I could choose a Game Boy or a Game Gear when I was younger, and I went with a Game Boy because, I mean, it was a Game Boy. And I already had one, so I think that was the decision made for me as well. But anyway, I got a Game Gear a couple of years ago thanks to Chris Carlson and Thor. This is my ultimate Game Gear that they did for me. It is completely reshelled, completely outfitted. It's got LEDs in it. It looks nothing like a stock Game Gear, obviously. Like, it's beautiful, but I really like the library of Game Gear games because this is essentially just a portable Master System. The games are fun. The games are well made. The games are optimized incredibly well for the Game Gear. The screen on this one in particular is beautiful, and it works off of a USB-C. That's how it charges, which I think is great, so I don't have to worry about batteries anymore, which I love. But it's such a great little console and such a great little device, and it's so easy to collect for because 90% of Game Gear games are dirt cheap. So you can find some really fun titles literally everywhere that you go to for like a video game swap meet or a video game store. You're going to be able to find some really dirt cheap Game Gear games, and most of them are really fun. In particular, I would suggest Deep Duck Trouble and the Lucky Dime Caper. Both of them are excellent. Lucky Dime Caper is probably my favorite Master System game, and the Game Gear port of it is fantastic. Outrun is also great on it. It's just a really wonderful device, and something that I don't think gets enough love. Kind of like the Atari Lynx, which I don't own, and I've only played a couple of times, but what I played I liked. But I think the Game Gear is a little bit ahead of where the Lynx was. All right, we're into the Nintendo section now. There's going to be one interrupt between two families of Nintendo devices here, but to start off, got to talk about the Game Boy because this is where it all began. This is really what kickstarted my love affair with handheld gaming, was the original big-ass gray brick from Nintendo. I remember getting this whatever year it released. This was like the only thing I wanted for Christmas, and I ended up getting it, and I played Tetris. I must have burned through 3 sets of batteries the day we got this because I just played Tetris all day. Tetris and Super Mario Land. And it was just such a great experience, and it brought me so many amazing games. Stuff like Motocross Maniac, stuff like Pokemon eventually. This was all because of this little device here. And I think that that shouldn't be ignored, because while by today's standards it might be a little archaic and it might be a little bit dated in some terms, I still think by many regards, a lot of people's love of gaming started with this guy here because it was so easy to just use. Granted, you could only use it during daylight, and you could only use it when you could actually see because the screen was awful in the dark, but if you mod it, she sure is pretty. It's a great system though, and it has so many fantastic games. Like Tetris alone puts this head and shoulders above so many other devices, but just the massive library that the game has and the undisputed ability to bring people into gaming shows exactly what this thing was capable of and how great of a device it is. I love it. It's fun to collect for. It's also easy to collect for, kind of like the Game Gear. A lot of games for the Game Boy are really cheap. A lot of classic games are really cheap. So it's a wonderful system to have, and it's a wonderful system to build a library for. And the nice thing is, because there's so many, there's a huge variety of games too. So you're going to be able to find something that you really like and play it on this. Oh, and with the Game Boy, don't forget, it's region free. You can play Japanese games on it. There's a bunch of Japanese games that in the States are incredibly expensive for the US release, but you don't need to speak Japanese to play them. So you can just grab the Japanese copy and spend a few dollars on it and enjoy it. Like in particular, the Rockman World games instead of the Mega Man World games for the Game Boy, dirt cheap in comparison. And if we're talking about the Game Boy, we have to talk about the Game Boy Color, because this was the next evolution. As much as I would like to talk about the Game Boy Light or the Game Boy Pocket, don't really feel the need to talk about those because they kind of give the same experience that you get with the classic DMG. Granted, with some quality of life improvements, but where we really saw a leap forward was with the Color, because the Color gave us, say it with me, color. It was great. Now, the library is not huge for the Game Boy Color, but it does play every single classic Game Boy game and will apply a color palette to it. So that's pretty awesome. It's kind of like using the Super Game Boy on the Super Nintendo. Doesn't look quite as nice, but it is something that it makes those games feel a little bit fresher. It also gave us some classic first run games on the Game Boy Color, things like Shantae, some of the Pokemon games. There's some really, really excellent Game Boy Color games out there that only are playable on this system that you can't play on the classic Game Boy. And I think that is enough reason to call it out on its own. This isn't my original, but this was my Game Boy Color when I was younger. I loved my Kiwi Game Boy. This is one of the first things I bought when I started going to video game expos. I bought this at my first Midwest Gaming Classic, and it's still awesome. I still love to play it. It's still fun, and I think it's amazing. Next comes the Game Boy Advance, and you can go in two different directions with this. You can go the classic Taco, or you can go with the SP. You can also go with the Micro. There's a lot of different options there for the Game Boy Advance. I personally prefer to play on the SP because I like having screen protection. I also really love this NES original here. This was my first GBA. I bought this one from Mr. Rightway a few years ago because we wanted to do some mods for it. But this one here is my ride or die. The SP is the one that used to go with me to work every day. It was one that I played games like Advance Wars and Fire Emblem on for the first time. Games that have become part of my gaming DNA was all because of the GBA SP. Now, the form factor on the GBA SP can be a problem for people with larger hands. Luckily, I am a hobbit, so I have tiny little hands, and it doesn't bother me to play it. They do cramp up from time to time just because it is so small, so if you are interested in playing games from the GBA, maybe you want to try it on the original model because it's a little bit of a wider stance, so your hands might feel a little bit better. But the fact that there are so many incredible games on the GBA library shouldn't be ignored. All of the Pokemon games are fantastic. The Castlevania games are incredible. The Nintendo first-party games are amazing. All of the re-releases of the fantastic Super Mario Bros. Games on the GBA are worthwhile and worth playing. The Mega Man Battle Network, I could keep going on and on. There's so many amazing games on there. Justice League Heroes The Flash, Fantastic Four, Flame On, Lady Sia. If I was crazy, and I might be, not crazy enough to do this, but if I was crazy and I was independently wealthy and I was looking for an opportunity for a system to collect every game for that was out of reach and wasn't something a little bit more attainable like the Neo Geo Pocket Color, the Game Boy Advance might be the one I go with. All right, before we get to the last two from Nintendo, I need to point out one from Hudson, from Gunpei Yokoi, who created the Game Boy, and this is the Wonder Swan Color. I love this machine. This is the Final Fantasy II release. I picked this up from my buddy Thor at MGC this year. I just think this is an amazing console. It is something you have to be patient with because literally everything for it is in Japanese. There was no US release here. So be prepared with your Google Translate, have your Google Lens going so you can read what's going on. But the console itself is just nice. Like, it feels good in hand. I really like the buttons. I think my biggest complaint with it is the space for the battery pack, because the battery on the back bumps out, as you can see, and that's kind of where you rest your fingers, and that's a little bit odd, but I also don't hate it. Like, it's not something where I'm just like, this is terrible, I can never do this. It's fine. Like, it works. I'm nitpicking here. I'm trying to find a problem with it. It's one of those systems where I've liked the Wonder Swan from afar for a long time, the Wonder Swan and the Wonder Swan Color. This one will play regular and color games. And I had played a lot of them on emulation, and I really enjoyed them. And I had kind of accepted the fact that I was never going to own one because I had a line on this particular device, not this very one, but the Final Fantasy II release a few years ago, and I was about to buy it, and the guy powered it on to see if it would work, and it wasn't working, and he wouldn't sell it to me. So I kind of just accepted the fact that I wasn't going to have it, and then I had the opportunity this year, and I'm very excited to own it because I think it's one of those unsung and underloved consoles out there. It's cleverly designed, the games are fun, and not a lot of people know about it, and I think that's a shame. Okay, last two, and first up is what I think is the ultimate version of the Nintendo DS. I think if you're going to own a DS and you're going to play on a DS, the one you should go with is the DS Lite. The screen quality is impeccable. It plays Game Boy Advance games. It's just a perfect console. It really is. And it's such a good form factor and such a good size that it just works. The sound quality is really good. It's actually got stereo speakers on it, which I really like. I just like it. And the DS library is something that I think gets a lot of bad rap for having a lot of shovelware on it. And I mean, rightfully so. In that case, there is a lot of shovelware on it, but there's a lot of really classic quality DS games as well that play incredibly, incredibly well, play very, very well on the DS Lite. It's a really great system. I love the clamshell design because it protects the screens, and I think that gives it a longer lasting appeal because this was something that I could just take with me, toss in my backpack and go to work or go to a friend's house and have something to play. Like, it's a really great system, and one that I think if this next console didn't exist would probably be my favorite handheld of all time. Number one with a bullet though, the absolute best retro gaming handheld device for me is the Nintendo 3DS. Now, I can already hear people complaining and saying that's not retro. It is, guys. It is. They don't make anything for it. It doesn't have any kind of stereo, or it doesn't have any kind of video out or anything like that. It is a retro console. It is a retro handheld device, and I love it. This is my favorite video game system of all time. I love the library. I love the fact that it can play every DS game. I love that Nintendo took a chance with something that was a little bit weird, with stereoscopic 3D screens that shouldn't work, but work incredibly well, with a library that is fantastic, with digital downloads that worked and weren't like forced upon you. You could buy them if you wanted to, with a virtual console that was great. Like, it was the total package. It was really curious to see something like the 3DS release and be incredibly successful versus the Wii U, which released and fell flat on its face when they are essentially upgrades of their previous existence. So this is the updated DS, that was the updated Wii, and for some reason people were willing to accept and run with this guy, and I think it's because of the portability. It's a really important device to me. It was something that got me through a lot of moves and a lot of tumult. It was something that I used to take to work every day, and it was something that to me was just a really perfect gaming experience. Like, I look at it and I look at the games that I played on it, and it was a huge variety of genres. It wasn't just like, oh, I only played the Mario games on it. Oh, I only played the Zelda games on it. It was stuff that I would play Project Cross Zone. I would play Fire Emblem. I would play Mario. I would play Zelda. It was stuff that, and other stuff as well. I'm just remembering the big titles off the top of my head. It was stuff that I look at and I go, it had such a variety and such a huge swath of games that I couldn't help but find something I loved. And it's still incredible to this day. And it's still, truthfully, my favorite system. As much as I love the Switch, as much as I love the Switch 2, that's number one. There you have it. My favorite handheld devices, minus the PSP, since I don't know where mine is. Let me know in the comments down below. What are your favorite handheld devices? Let me know why you love them. I would love to hear from you. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a big thumbs up. If you really enjoyed it, consider subscribing and sticking around. And until next time, folks, I've been Jay. Thank you so much for being here. Remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.